Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha. And we are coming to you on 44 different platforms around the world. And my name is Agi, I'm the host. And my co-host, my lovely co-host, Nori, cannot be here tonight. So we're going to have to suffer through it with just me. And we are the 44 different platform, but also we are transmitting on Conscious Awakening Network. Here's a tip for you. Go over there. Go to consciousawakeningnetwork.org and roam around a little bit. You're going to like it there because they got close to 50 different shows over there that cover all the stuff that both you and me need to know about. But you won't find any of it on 5 o'clock news, of course. So before I introduce my guest here, I also want to tell you how you can get in touch with me and get in touch with Nori. You can go to broadcastteamalpha.com, broadcastteamalpha.com, and find the contact feature there and send us an email, and we'll get the email and we'll send you some information back and whatever we can do for you. So we are very, very open and available. And also, I want to say that Nori and I created a think tank, a spiritual think tank, almost 5 years ago now. We have done incredible things with that. We have, we reach into the quantum existence and find things that we want in the physical and we bring it home. Because that mastermind, let me remind me what a mastermind is. That's when two or more minds are united in harmony, they create a third mind that has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. So if you got 1,000 people concentrating on one thing, going in one direction with intention, then you have a power, the mind power of 1,000,000 minds, and that is powerful. That is why that we have been able to heal people on their deathbed so they walk out of the hospital the next day, or create rain out of almost clear skies in about an hour and a half, and economic windfalls and stuff. If you want to be part of something that is really bigger than yourself, send us an email and I'll send you some information so you can come and check it out. Send the email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And if you are watching us on YouTube, that's the place to be because that's the only place that we can watch the chat room. And and we then well, let's see. I guess we are going to introduce the guest to you here. So I will. He's very well known. He has been on Gaia and he's on all the big shows and interviews out there. So I will introduce Sébastien Martin. And for those of you that like to surf the internet and their website while you listen, then just go to his website at terranovelis.com. terranovelis.com. And just a few words about him. He is an entrepreneur, is originally from France. I knew I got a smile out of that one. That's French French for France. Okay, and he's been busy creating health food brands in the United States, England, Australia, and Canada, and but in on November in 2011, things changed. It was a life-altering experience, a close encounter of the fifth kind. Now that is personal contact. And a conscious interaction with a stellar being from the fifth dimensional existence. This started ongoing communication with what he calls his star family. I'm familiar with that family. This is a good one. And he now gets frequent downloads and information relevant to these times. And he writes about it, he talks about it, so that's why you need to listen to more of his shows, not just this one, because there are pearls in it. And lately has been contacted by a being from the 11th dimensional existence. And also there is a contact between the Galactic Alliance and him. So stay with us on this one, folks. This is going to get really interesting. And welcome to the show, Sébastien.
Well, thank you very much, Haggy, for having me.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be good. Oh gosh, it's a shame that Nori couldn't be here because this is her subject. The consciousness and the universe out there, that is right up her alley. But can I ask you first, maybe, instead of doing what everybody else does, why did you go out on this esoteric path and try to help other people make their life better? And where did it start for you?
Well, I was compelled to do it, knowing that this was completely foreign to me. Like you said, in November of 2011, I had an encounter that completely came to me by surprise, randomly, I would say, even if I'm sure the events were not random or that random, because if we go back to that time, since this is basically the point where I moved away from the monetary aspect of my life, just a regular, day-to-day job, going to work, and handling employees and managing my multinational business, and then being just completely slapped in the face with that vision. First thing in the morning when I woke up, I saw this being in my dream. So just in a dream state, I thought it was just like a regular dream, and I was waking up and he was looking at me. I could see his bust and his eyes were way bigger than mine or the human people in general, with like higher cheekbones. And he had a bright smile, very, very wide and very unusually wide, but also very unnatural. You could tell that it was not something that came out naturally to him, but I could feel his energy for feeling that he was happy to see me and that he recognized me, but I did not recognize him. So
Oh,
when I went to work that day, which was actually on November 11th of 2011, so 11/11/11, that was
wow.
a bank holiday, right? So I was not there was no employees in the office. I went to work. I went to my office space, and I was working on my laptop. And then all of a sudden, I was looking through the window opposite me, and I could see that they in front of me. Sorry, and I could still see that being in my field of vision. I could still see that dream completely as it was. I was when I woke up exactly the same way, but it stayed with me for the whole day, and so that kind of shook me because I never had a dream that stayed that long in a day. To the point was where I basically went back home, and I told my wife at the time that I was going to be like staying behind and trying to meditate. I practiced transcendental meditation since I was 8 years old. My mom was a Buddhist, and she taught me from very early age on how to meditate, and it stayed with me all this time. So I decided to sit down on the sofa. I poured myself a chamomile tea, which I was sipping on the countertop in the kitchen. And I didn't think I was going to be spending too much time meditating on that thing. I was just like sitting down on the sofa and closed my eyes. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I could feel this whirlwind around me, like this field of energy swirling around me, basically. And all of a sudden, it stopped. So I was really paying attention to the energy and what was happening around me. I'm very sensitive that way. And when the energy stopped, I opened my eyes. which was unusual to me because usually if I'm in a meditative state, I would just stay, with my eyes closed, and I would just still try to meditate, repeating my mantra and trying to just like focus on that, trying to avoid the monkey brain. And at that point, I opened my eyes, and that being was standing up right in front of me, the same being that I saw in my dream. But this time, he was like feet first on the ground, and then I could see him in front of my bookshelf, right in front of me. And he was still, he was not moving. There was a bright blue glow of energy around his body. And the first reaction I had was trying to stand up, and I was frozen in fear. So I was basically just trying to stand up, but I could not move. And I was trying to open my mouth, like trying to speak, trying to think in my head, what are you doing in my house? This is like an invasion of privacy. All of those kind of random things that were almost like stupid in a way, because that being was not obviously human, and he just appeared out of nowhere. It's not like he was doing like a home invasion. He just appeared. And so, but my reaction was very unusual, I guess. But
Yeah.
it was just my primal instinct of trying to defend my family and my home. And when I realized I could not move, it kind of made me a bit panicked because I never had that experience before where I was completely frozen. And the first thing that came to my mind, so telepathically, that being introduced himself, first of all, he said, "Don't worry, this is normal. Don't panic. There's no need to worry. My name is Zor, and I'm from the Galactic Alliance." These were the first words he pronounced in English. So they appeared in English in my mind, not in French.
Yeah.
So it was very specific. And it's for some reason when you are in that state, you are kind of subdued because your mind. What I've learned over time is that your mind and your thought process could hurt them. It could actually hurt many other alien races out there, just because they have a much deeper and broader understanding of
Yeah.
the different dimensions that surround us compared to them, which is it's wide open. So they already know how to block that monkey brain.
Mhm.
So for me, to have a conversation with that being, this was almost like timely because I had dreams, but I also had visions, very very strong visions during that
Mm.
year prior to, or actually 2 years prior to that episode. And for 2 years, I was plagued with very catastrophic events, visions, and I was really believing that those events were going to happen. So that caused a lot of anxiety in my life. And I was running a business with like 35 employees. I just didn't have time to, focus on those kind of, ordeals. And I was uh, stressed out, and I was thinking I should just deal with an hypnotherapist. And that's what I booked. I booked an appointment a week prior to that event, and I was
Mm.
waiting for my appointment. And my 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 concern was mostly to do with the visions I was having and trying to get rid of the anxiety, not anything to do with aliens. It was really mostly to do with visions and the catastrophic events that could have potentially have affected me and my family. So I was just trying to be
Mm.
very protective, and I was trying to find out if that was becoming real or not. These were the questions I was going to ask the hypnotherapist. While I was faced with that alien being, I felt compelled to share the same things. And because it was so much on my mind at the time, I remember asking him, "Do you think that the visions I had are going to be turning true? That we would have an earthquake and tsunamis and catastrophic events?" And he said,
Mm.
"Well, yes, but it's no big deal. Like, we are not, we are beyond, we see beyond our physical body, and so we
Mm.
live forever." For him, the physical experience was just an experience, like nothing to worry about. It was just an illusion almost. That's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
much how he introduced it to me, trying to make me realize that this was nothing. It was nothing to really be concerned about. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't think it really put me at ease, but that's how he came forward with the information. He was not trying to sugarcoat it. He was just telling me like this is no big deal. People live and die. and that's the way it is. And there's no fear to
Yeah.
have around that because
Yeah.
our life doesn't end there. That's pretty much what he said.
Hmm.
However, during that conversation, I thought that maybe we had 15 minutes of chats, not more than that. And when he vanished, when he disappeared on me, he completely disappeared in a haze. So his body phased out, like almost going like this. So I knew that
Mm.
his body was not physical. It was more of an hologram that looked very real to me. Like he looked physical,
Yeah.
but he was not there. It just appeared to me in that way, in that form.
He
But
put his he put his hologram through your mind so you could see it. Could that be
Probably.
it?
So the thing is, like when he vanished, I was able to regain access to my body, and I was able to stand up. And as soon as I remember it so well, the second I stood up and I looked down at my feet, walking back towards the kitchen, the first thing I thought was, am I losing my mind? Am I turning crazy? Because I didn't believe that this experience was real. I thought that was just in my mind.
Yeah. I
I
know
was
that
so
feeling.
shocked. And so I went back to the kitchen. And when I went back to the kitchen, I grabbed my tea and I sipped it. And then I realized, oh my God, it's freezing cold. And I looked at the stove. And that's when I realized that I had 2.5 hours of missing time, roughly between 2 and 2.5 hours of missing
Mm.
time. And I truly believe that my conversation with that being was only 50 minutes long. So I knew that something else happened during that time,
Yeah.
but I have zero recollection of it. And so when I booked my appointment with the therapist, I was not going to be talking about aliens. That was not my intention. When I decided to see her the next week, I talked about the visions. She did some regressions with me, and I was able to see some past lives, which was nice. And then she said to me, "Well, do you want to control your visions, or do you want to stop them altogether?" And so I thought, well, I have seen the birth of my child. Like I've seen spirits going into my our bedroom back in 2009, and they were hovering over my wife's belly to look at the fetus, and she
Mm.
was 3 or 4 months pregnant at the time, and she had no soul. So it's interesting to know
Really?
that, yeah. So people believe that soul energies come in as soon as you are conceived, just with a sperm and the egg. But
Yep.
I think it could happen at random times. And in that case, my child didn't have a soul because all of his souls were queuing up in the bedroom and basically bending like this, trying to look down on the fetus and coming back up and leaving. And they were all bright light of energies going in and out of the room. And it was a procession of souls that lasted forever. And I remember being in bed, waking up in the middle of the night and observing what was going on. Basically, my arm was like this on the bed. I was wide awake and I was observing it. And the same thing, nothing really seemed to be um, like negative, or this was the normal process. I was being told basically that this is the regular process. There's nothing to fear about it. It's normal. It's that's what it's supposed to be happening for this child. And and I fell asleep. I went back to sleep after a while because this was ongoing and it was forever. And so at the same time, I had visions. I had prophetic visions. I saw events that occurred in the past as well. And when I went to see the therapist, I thought, if I saw all of these things, maybe it's for a reason and I should not get rid of them. I should try to open myself to it and trying to control those visions instead of trying to be plagued by them, which was the case
Mm.
then. I felt like plagued by those visions because it was not a gift. It was definitely something that was affecting my life more than being
Yeah,
useful.
like a
On occasion,
disturbance.
it was positive, but most of the time it was pretty disturbing. I remember, seeing myself in the body of a teenager inside of an airplane, and the airplane crashed. And this
Mm.
airplane accident occurred. I was able to see the next day in the news. So
Hmm.
I know that the feeling that you have associated with this is also the feeling that I have using remote viewing, for example, which we can talk about down the line. But this is the same like feeling that you get from the visions or the dream states that I was in. It was so vivid and so emotionally, plagued that it did affect my life because it was interfering with my day to day. So I did ask the
Hmm.
therapist to control those visions, and she gave me some tools to be more at ease with them, which has been a godsend, I have to say. I was able to control those visions, and they did not show up randomly the ways they used to. I was able
Hmm.
to trigger them rather than have them on, at random times. So this was
Hmm.
good. But what came with this after the visions, she said to me, "Well, in order to get to the root of the problem, let's try to find out when it all started for you." And so I explained. I said, when I was about 16 years old, I had prophetic visions then, and I saw classmates in accidents, and one of them dying, and all of this. So not all nice events,
Hmm.
and I was able to go back to that time when I was in that boarding school at 16 years old, and this is when I observed myself being lifting up in the air. I was describing that event as an abduction without realizing even it was an abduction because
Um,
I wasn't familiar with that. I didn't know what that meant. All I could feel was I could see my body under hypnosis, I could see my feet leaving the ground, and I was describing the event as it occurred. I was put on my back in the air, and I was going feet first into the spacecraft. And
hmm.
there was a bright light. I was going in, and then the room was filled with light, and they were tall gray aliens, and their skin color was more very whitish gray, but more like on the whitish side. And they had big black eyes, for sure, and the same as you normally describe the gray aliens. But
Yeah.
those ones were tall. They were tall with long legs and long arms, and the arms were much longer than the human arms, even. They were extending further down than our human arms. And I could feel them behind me and some on my left. I could not see my left. It's almost like I was being stuck in position, and I could not move my head. So I could just see, I could move my eyes, but not so much my head. So I could just feel the energy around me. And what's interesting about all of this is when those gray aliens or those white aliens kind of thing, they were not tall whites like people would say they're tall whites. These were like long, elongated gray aliens. People call them the doctors, I believe. But anyway, so I was looking at them, and they were arguing with each other, and which is
Really?
interesting because it's not typical of aliens communicating with one another, and they were using this. It wasn't kind of like a language, more of a sound, but to me, under hypnosis, it sounded like a blow, 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 like that kind of sound, very deep, guttural, very weird sound. And so, as I was describing this to the therapist, she said to me, "Can you ask them what they're arguing about?" And I said, "How can I ask them? They don't speak my language." And she said, "Well, you're under hypnosis. You can use your subconscious mind to ask them in English, and it's almost like a pause in time, and they will take the time to reply to you in plain English what they're arguing about." I said, "Okay." You have to realize that even to this point, I did not believe in what I was seeing. I thought that I was imagining it because I thought, yes, I was under hypnosis, but I was such a good subject that I was not realizing how relaxed and connected to that experience I was, because to me I was awake. I felt awake, but I was
Yeah.
not awake. That's what I mean. I was conscious. To me, all I remembered of being put under through hypnosis is stage hypnosis, where you are being told to, like, play out a chicken and to do some
Yeah.
silly things on
Yeah.
stage. This is what my dad was telling me when I was growing up. This is what hypnosis is. So I never really took it seriously. But this time, when she told me to ask the question, so I just asked the question. So what are you arguing about? And the reply was, we can't touch you because you have been tampered with. So you've been manipulated before, and it's not what our experience is all about. We need to have like almost like a virgin body to be able to experiment on, and you are not it. So it was something that they didn't like. And
Wow.
I didn't quite understand what that meant, to be honest. Now I do, but at the time I didn't. And so I repeated this to the therapist, and the therapist then said, can you ask them what that means? And so I asked, and there was no reply. So I said, they're not answering. So then she said, can they show you what that means? And so they showed me symbols. And one of the symbols was an upside down triangle with three black dots on each end. And there were also a staff and a star. So those were holographic symbols that were put in the air for me. And after that, while I described what it was, she then said, can you um, ask them what those symbols mean? Once again, there was nothing. It was just a big blank, no replies. And so I decided to ask them. This is what the therapist asked me to ask. She said, "Can you ask them what those symbols means to you and where you've seen them before, if they mean anything to you?" And then the gradients make me black out. So I blacked out under hypnosis, and I felt going backwards, and I was going very
Mm.
fast, backwards. And I woke up, and I was in a cylinder. I remember there was a dome above me. It was opaque. There were symbols on the seams. They were like upside down omega, like the Greek letter omega
Mm-hmm.
symbols uh, on the seams all around. And I was in black goo, what people would call black goo. It was a black liquid of some sort that didn't feel wet. It felt like basically um, almost like silk. It was very
Mm-hmm.
soft, but it also felt intelligent, and it was moving. It had a mind of its own.
Yeah.
And I was a 6 month old baby in that, in that state. So I felt very vulnerable. And for someone like me as an adult who has an experience and reliving something as a 6 month old is pretty daunting and unexpected, especially that I was believing that I was making it up,
Mm.
that I was making up all these stories in my mind, that it was just my pure imagination. And so that shocked me. It shocked me to the
Yeah.
point that I could feel the vulnerability of the baby. And it took me a while to adjust to that environment. And so while I was describing all of this, the therapist said, well, can you come out of your body to see where you are? Because I was seeing silhouettes walking through the opaque glass dome that was above me. And so she wanted me to observe that scene and see outside of the dome to describe my environment. But I didn't know that at the time. She said, can you just come out of your body to see where you are? And so the
Mm.
next thing that happens is I'm ending up in space. I'm in literal space, observing a spacecraft underneath me, knowing my connections with my soul body to the physical body in that spacecraft, and the Earth is underneath it. So
Oh.
it's like the craft is away from the Earth, it's still in space. It looks black, it looks dark, it still has the reflection of the sun, everything. There's no stars in the sky, like it was pitch black, and I could feel like I was floating in space. And so she said, "Just go back." I could hear the therapist's voice, and I have the recording. And she said, "Just go back in your body, go back in your body." And so I
Mm.
did. And then she said, "Just come out of your body, but stay in the room to observe your environment." That's what she meant after, right? So I did that, and that's what I saw. This very organic looking room where the walls were almost like green, the floor was orange, and everything felt almost like AI. Everything was, um, it was not really material like the way we conceive as being material. It was,
Mm.
everything had an intelligence to it. The floor, the
Aha.
walls, like the whole craft was intelligent. And the
Yeah.
beings that were standing up there, so there was a man and a woman. The man had almost like a crown on his head that looked like, the guy looked like Zeus, but
Mm.
still the same physicality as Zor, the boy
Was
who
it
came to see
green?
me. He was a Pleiadian, and so same big eyes, bright smile. But those guys, the man and the woman, were not smiling. They looked very stern looking, and to the point. And
Yeah.
I had no interactions with them then. I wasn't talking to them. I could only see them. They were not looking at me as a spirit. They were only observing the cylinder where my physical body as a 6 month old baby was. And that's basically what I could observe. The female, the woman next to him, looked like his wife. She was probably as tall as him, not a bit shorter, slightly, but he was over 7 feet tall, 7 to 8 feet tall. So he was much taller than human beings,
Yeah.
quite muscular as well in appearance. They were both were wearing this blue uniform, very tight fitting, and also they have this upside down triangle on their chest with the three black dots, which is the symbol that the gray aliens showed me on that spacecraft when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the connection. This was the main
Yeah.
connection.
I see
And
also that
so
we are.
after that, um, I was back in my baby body.
Oops. I think we have an
Hello?
interruption. Yeah. I see also that we are down at the bottom of the hour. And for those of you that joined us late, we are talking with Sébastien Martin. He's talking about his experience on an alien spacecraft. And I tell you, I am normally not this quiet, but this got so interesting. I just couldn't think of anything to break in and ask about because this story we needed to hear from the beginning, and that was really interesting to me. I do want to ask you a question, though. A lot of times, these kinds of contacts they follow generational father, son, mother, daughter, and down the way. Did your parents have any experiences like this?
No. Well, my mom did a bit. So my mom, she's passed away now, but she did have an out of body experience when she died. She had a car crash with my father when they were just dating at the time, and she was only 16 years old, 17 years old, and she went through the windscreen of the frontal collision, and so she died multiple times on the operating table, and she did leave her body, and she was on the ceiling of the operating room, and she could see her physical body, and it was all banged up obviously, and then she could see this tunnel opening up behind her, and she went through the light. The typical out of body experience, or NDE experience, like a near death
Yeah,
experience. So I talked to her about this, and she remembered going through this white light and observing those silhouettes in that space, and there were many people, but she got frightened by it because all she could see, because of the bright light, she could only see their silhouettes, not their only their shadow, not their physical body, per se. And so she was quite shocked by it, and she came back into her body after the main being who was there to greet her said, "This is not your time. You have to go back in your body." And so
mhm.
this was before I was born, obviously. So that was her experience, and she came back with a gift of healing. So she was able to heal
Yeah,
people with major burns, and she always felt connected to the star beings. It's all very interesting because when I had my experience with the Pleiadians, she was not even shocked by it. She was almost telling me, finally. And she almost told me that I was not from here. So she's
Yeah.
the one who was already telling me, and she never mentioned that in my life. Only when I addressed the experience in 2011, when I told her that I had an ET experience, she told me that basically I was not from here anyway. So it makes total sense to her. And
Yeah.
so,
In the middle of that, there's
what I was going to say.
there's a middle of that, there's a
Yeah,
question. And that is, when your mother had that accident, are there also accidents spiritually? Or was that a planned event for her to wake up? What do you think?
I think it's so connected. Yes, obviously everything happens for a reason. I don't believe in random events. I do believe in synchronicities, and so
Yeah,
I do believe that her experience was, designed to also cope with the pregnancies that she went through,
yeah,
and the ordeal that she had to deal with. It was not an easy birth with me, clearly, because going back to that abduction with the Gradients, when I was in that cylinder at 6 months old, it meant it was for a reason again, because when I was born, when I was conceived to begin with, my mom already was pregnant, and I was conceived a few weeks, if not a month, after the first fetus was made or conceived. So this was very unusual. And while she was pregnant, she went to the emergency because she was having an hemorrhage, basically, and the doctors knew that she only had one fetus. And so when they did a scan again for her, they realized that there were two babies now, not just one, which was very unusual. But they said the way it is, most likely one of them will die because you can't keep both of them. And so the other fetus died, and but because it was so advanced, mature in the womb, they could not simply extract him because I was already there. And so they had to mummify that fetus for 9 months.
oh,
So they had to dry him up every month. My mom had to go to the hospital to be injected so that fetus would not affect me growing up or anything else. And so when I was delivered at 9 months old, I had no skin. The first layer of my epidermis was not present. And so I was in pain, I was screaming. Um, I was being seeing specialists throughout the whole of Europe to see what this was because no one had a clue. And it was only like an old doctor from Switzerland who basically came up with the idea that I had Lenermussus, which was a skin condition, a genetic condition. But again, this did not even fit the profile because if I had that condition, I would have been 5 feet tall and very skinny and not in a very good health, and which is not the case today, obviously. And so
yeah.
I believe that my experience on that ship was to heal my skin. That black goo was there to heal me and to fix me, basically. And so my star family intervened to fix me at that point. And so
Mm.
right after that, my skin conditions became better. My skin grew as soon as this experience happened, and no one knew how and why. It just happened.
Nature have a way about itself.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So when you ask me how I became spiritual and wanted to help people after that, well, one, my mom was a Reiki master. She was definitely involved in
Okay.
the healing process with people. I always looked at it as this is your thing. This has nothing to do with me. I don't feel connected to it because my life would be different. My life would be about to make money, to do like a successful business, and I
Yeah.
was pragmatic to the extreme at that point. I was. So I was. My dad was a businessman. My mom was more esoteric as well. But while I embraced the organic lifestyle and the philosophy, I was definitely more of a businessman trying to just make money and trying to help people through the use of health food products. This was my thing, and but this was the extent of my journey. Trying to help people with good foods. That was it. Not
Yeah.
that energetically speaking, I left that to my mom. I didn't know what else to do. And so
Mm.
when I had this experience, that completely changed my world, to the point that, after 20 years of marriage, my life completely changed when my wife decided to leave me because she did not recognize the man she married. I was very different.
Oh.
I was very different. And the that journey changed me, and I could not look back. So I have lost friends over this as well.
Mm.
It was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, there's a purpose for
Um,
everything.
Yes, exactly. So for me, while this was happening, I just knew I could not look back. This was my experience, and I had to remain true to it. And
Mm.
whatever happened to me, I felt like I had to share my story at some point, because when I did the hypnotherapy sessions, I did a few, and every time I went, I came back and had major downloads for my star family right after or during. But even if I wasn't showing up for those sessions, I was still receiving more and more information. And
Yeah.
when you have life experiences, talking about synchronicities, you also have those moments where it almost like looks like random events. But
Yeah.
when you put those pieces of puzzles together, then you realize it makes a big puzzle. It's a bigger story, and then those pieces make sense. And
Yeah.
so I always remember those pieces. Always, I never neglected any experience I had, and I was putting them together, realizing that this was part of a much bigger agenda, bigger than me as well, obviously, but also much bigger and important, that I was part of, and I had to embrace it. So this was very
Yeah.
important to me to share my story after my star family said to me, your life purpose was to live and die, and that's it, nothing
Hmm.
else.
Yeah.
But
Well,
because Zoe, your baby brother, and that's how he was. He is my baby brother. He's he's over a few thousand years old, but he's my baby brother. And he came to see me because he was against doing that against protocols. He just was dying to see me. There was a reason for his visit as well. It was
mm,
against his parents' wishes, or the Galactic Alliance wishes. He had to come over to awaken me, but without telling me that he was awakening me. So my Kundalini awakening happened during that visit, but I had no idea. I had no
mm,
clue what was happening to me. And I believe that those 2 hours of missing time basically were linked to my Kundalini energy, my remote viewing experiences and abilities that grew much greater after that event. And so that never left me. But it was all very interesting to know that from my star family, when they said when you are just designed to live and die and experience all human emotions, because we've lost those emotions as Pleiadians, and now we're trying to reconnect to what
hmm.
we've lost and try to relearn from you. And that was the
Yeah.
main goal. And then, but they said, because you are now awakened, that's kind of the word they used. Now you have to yourself awaken the star seeds of this planet. But
Yeah.
again, these were the words they've used to me, but there was no manual. There was nothing. Just saying, go ahead, have fun, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
And that you
at that
did.
time, you have to realize I was too busy. I was too busy to even focus on the meaning of it, and I just put it away. I just put it aside, because I said, "How can I ever be able to do this?" And then so that was back in 2011, 2012, and then it took me 4 more years before going on a radio show to talk about those experiences, because at the time I had a bunch of other experiences, including Men in Blacks showing up to my door. I had many things
Yeah.
happening to me. But all this time, I was staying quiet. I was absorbing. I was absorbing the information, and I was taking it all in, but without sharing anything. Even with my close friends, I was not even sharing that because they could not understand what I was going through. And so at some point, I said to the board, because I was part of this major corporation at some point, and I became the chairman of the board after selling my company in 2014. And I had to resign from my post.
Yeah. Well,
So after resigning, I said I need to be able to share my experiences
yeah.
on the radio, and I will talk about aliens, and I don't believe you will like it. So they accepted my resignation, but this was my journey, and this is what I meant to do.
Yeah. Do you know what I think? I think you're having a
What is
lot
it?
more fun right now than you would have in the business world.
Of course, I mean this is very different, and this is also more true to myself
Yeah.
and to others because again, my journey is just beginning.
Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
change subject on us for a little bit. I want to touch on a subject that is very close to my heart, and that because I've been messing around with it for 30 years, and that is time travel.
Mhm.
You in your talks, you talk about parallel timelines. What you
Okay.
have discovered, what do you see in the parallel timelines where possibly that you may be in more than one of them? And your
That's right.
situation may be different. Maybe you're, who knows, maybe you're married to a different woman, or maybe you have other things that are different. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So in my life, I had many bilocation events occurring to me. It was very prominent when I was 16, when I was 20, and as an adult as well. So basically, many people have seen me at other places at different times and sometimes very close by. So, for example, I had a friend at school who saw me on the school grounds. I was in a boarding school, but every Wednesday I was able to leave the school to go to town. And my hobby was to go to the local library. I was very studious. I love to read books, and I went to the local library. But my friend saw me leaving the school grounds with my sports bag, which was very distinctive with like a neon blue color on it. And he saw me leaving the ground and waving at him because he called me. And I looked back at him and I waved and I left. And I was, maybe a few kilometers down the road, but I was not on site. So for years, I told him he was a very close friend, and I'm still in touch with him today. And I said to him, I said, Philip, are you joking? Like, were you like doing a prank on me? And he said, no, I swear to God, I really saw you. It was you, and it was your bag. I said, okay. But for years, I could not believe him. And so that was that. And then the other portion of that was when I was at university and my girlfriend was seeing me on the school grounds when she was going to class. And I was 200 kilometers away that day. So I was meant to go back, but I was working like a part-time job basically to pay for my studies, and I was at a wine cellar trying to sell wine, and I was not present. I was not there. But I was meant to be back on that day. So I was meant to be back, but I was not there. And so she believed that I was back. And so she greeted me on the school grounds on the grass, field while she was heading to class. And she touched my hand. And I didn't remember any of this. And I was not there, but she does.
Mm.
My grandmother saw me in the Pyrenees when I was on TV, and I was nowhere near that space either, that place. So that was also very interesting. The last event, which is even the weirdest, is that while all of these events occurred in my lifetime at the same time when I was the same age, but when I was working with the intelligence officers, one of them said to me, when I looked at your interview with Kerry Cassidy, I did a 2-hour interview with her back in 2016 or 17, and I talked about my experiences. And what that person said to me was, I recognize your voice and I recognize your accent, and everything to do with your demeanor is the being that showed up to me when I was 10 years old. And
Oh.
that agent was from the Middle East, and she had to escape her country to go to Iran. And while she was in Iran, she was at the summer palace of the Shah of Iran. So she was from a very prominent family in her country. And while she was on a pebble beach in that summer palace, she basically had a visitation of a being that spoke to her in Arabic, but with a French accent.
Oh.
And that being was me. I was
And
that
you
being.
you do not speak Arabic.
I don't speak Arabic, and I wasn't even born.
Hmm.
I
Well,
appeared to her as an adult, the same way as I was on that interview in 2016 or 17, and she recognized me based on that interaction when she was 10 years old. And she never mentioned that to me for years, but she did say that she did recognize me, and she didn't know how, she didn't know why. And so when she shared that with me, I thought, oh, okay, it was one of those things again of bilocation, but I don't remember.
yeah.
And again, this was her experience, not mine. However, this was also the only time where I remembered that event after the facts.
Hmm.
So at some point, I had a full recall of that experience, seeing her as a child, looking down at her on the pebble beach, feeling the wind on my face, the whole 9 yards, everything. Everything was so real. And I was able to describe her environment from when she was sharing that story to me. I was then able to tell her the type of colors of the buildings and the antennas and the fence, everything around her. I was able to observe and describe, and she never mentioned that to me during that encounter when she explained that story to me. She never mentioned that before. I was the one describing that experience, and so that
Hmm.
felt very real to me. And so that's how we connected on a much deeper level, because again we were connected in previous lives as well. And I do believe that that being and that agent is my star mother in the Pleiades as well, and she
Hmm.
has the same memories too, but her role is to work for an agency, an intelligence agency that
Oh.
um,
Okay.
has nothing to do with anything else, but the connection and the bond that we developed over time made me see things so clearly because of that bond. So
Yeah.
my remote viewing experience, yes, it's there, but it's like 100% accurate with her. It's very very specific and detailed.
Yeah. Yeah. Things when you flipped, actually, it's called time slippage, I suppose. But when you ended up from one timeline to the other one, how did you know that there was a problem or a shift? So you consciously were trying to get back to the first one, or did it just happen?
Completely unrelated in my eyes. For when those events occurred when I was young and even at university, I had no memory of them, and I didn't feel any different. It's a very different situation when you basically live in that 3D reality, and then you have something that you don't understand because you can't touch it.
Yeah.
And it's still part of the string theory, where you don't know the amount of dimensions, like 11 dimensions on Earth. We understand only maybe like the third dimension, the four dimensions, and the fifth dimension, but beyond that we are pretty much lost. And so
Yeah.
I
Spe-
understand those concepts.
Speaking of that, we have 6 minutes left, but I want to
Oh,
talk to your contact with an 11th dimensional existence entity.
yes, yes. So
How
that
how did that happen? Were you able to make that contact?
Yeah, so this was very different. I was in my living room in my house, still the same house as where I saw Zoe, and I was watching TV, and all of a sudden the beings appeared on my right hand side against the window. They had like a 17 tall feet high ceiling, and those beings appeared in front of the windows inside the room. I had a stove against the wall, and I could see those beings lining up. There were 5 of them, and so they were all lining up, all wearing the same white robes, almost like silvery hair, long, piercing blue eyes, and porcelain skin, white skin, ageless. They were ageless, all the same size, all pretty much the same size, like human size, I would say, like 5'9", 6 feet tall, and they were not moving. They were just there, looking, staring at me. And so that panicked me because I was on my
Yeah.
own. And the funny thing was, unlike my experience with Zoe, I was in full control of my body, but internally I panicked. I panicked
Yeah.
way more than what I was with Zoe. Like in that case, it felt like I had to put my feet up from the floor onto the sofa, thinking that the sofa was going to be protecting me against those beings. That's how weird the whole experience was. It's almost like floor is lava, and I have to protect myself from the environment. And so
Okay.
I was in that state of trying to like shrivel down because I was scared. I was basically facing something that was very um, not ominous, but definitely um, and not oppressing either, but I would say definitely important. Um, they wanted me to pay attention to them. And so while I was looking at them, um, I had no communication, no verbal communication or telepathic communication, just a basic stare. And then at that point, I completely blacked out. All of a sudden, I blacked out. And when
Mm.
I blacked out, so I completely lost consciousness. I was not in my body anymore. And I could see myself living in space, like going at the speed of light with those beings. And while I was going at the speed of light, they showed me. I would explain what happened before that, before I blacked out, but that's just completely irrelevant in my eyes. Um, when I was going through space, they wanted me to show where I came from as a soul being. When
Yeah.
I went back to source, I was able to feel this encompassing love, this energy that was completely. It felt like it was the whole universe. I felt part of the whole universe. My physical body was gone. I was just like pure light. What those beings told me was I was as ancient as they were. So I was one of them. And I didn't know what that meant, obviously, because to me, I was just Sebastian and having a human experience and having some interactions with ETs, but that's pretty much my life. I didn't think any of it. I was not spiritual to the extent of being religious or anything else like this. So for me, this experience was interesting and unusual. And at the same time, when they showed me the creation of like even from the Big Bang to everything into space, I felt the whole
Yeah.
thing. It was so overwhelming because everything happened so fast, and they were trying to speed it up for me so I could catch up with the Pleiades or the Pleiadians and seeing them on their craft and observing them and seeing them manipulating the soul energy
Wow. Yeah.
and
I
and
see some
completely
similarities.
like splitting up the soul energy to have multiple experiences on other planets for their own learning agenda. This was the main thing. It was surreal. I think we're running out of time. I will let you speak now.
Yeah, we're getting close, but let us know where people can get a hold of you and get your books. And I tell you, folks, we have only scratched the scratch on the scratch that was scratched into the scratch tonight. So you need to go and have a look at these books because they are so much more. I had a look at it, and please let people know where they can get your books and
Sure.
Gaia
And
and
get hold of
places
me.
that you've been. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on Gaia TV through Cosmic Disclosure, and people can watch my episodes on season 26 and 27. I will be going back there as well, and in the meantime, people can buy my book on Amazon. It's called Inner Journey in Outer Space. And they can also join me and contact me on my website at terranovelis.com, which is TerraNovelis.com.
Okay, that's yeah. I also found you on Facebook, so you're a lot of them out
I
there
am on
too.
Facebook too, yes. It's harder to find me on Facebook because of my name. Some people may be able to search for my name and see me, but for some reason, it's not as easy to find my name and on
Yeah.
Facebook. But through the website, and if they can connect to me, I will be more than happy to invite them on Facebook or whatever. So that's all good.
That sounds wonderful. I got one, my favorite question.
Okay.
If you could speak to the whole world and the world is listening, what would you tell them?
I would say exactly what you mentioned before. Be mindful of the present and making sure that your word um, is true and becomes reality. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Be true to yourself and be true to others.
Yes, that's right. But
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
whatever is true, if you speak your word and your truth, you know that it's reality and it becomes reality.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Hmm.
those of you out there watching us now, if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe and become a member also, because there's a lot of videos there that you don't see anywhere else if you're a member. So until then, thank you very much, Sebastian. This was fun. And I
Thank
gotta
you for
ask
having
you,
me.
could we have you come back?
Yes, I will come back and I will make sure that next time I have a better internet connection because I think we did have a
Uh,
few glitches.
I think it worked out okay. So, hey, thank you very
Okay.
much for being here with us.
All
And
right. Thank you.
to those of you who are watching there, we love you and come on back. And